Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Markout Moments exclusive presentation right here on markoutmoments.net. Hopefully, it's your favorite YouTube channel. I am Dolla Bill Dave. This is a show that I've been thinking about doing for a long time. I did a short variation of it back before on the RAM network, but we got to go about it a different way. We we can't just show everything due to copyright laws and all the fun things out there. So we're just gonna talk wrestling. And this show is going to be exclusively on the golden era of the World Wrestling Federation, hence the name Eras Golden. So, those of you that know me, I'm an 80s baby, was born in 81. So, grew up in the 80s, huge Hulk Hogan mark, absolute favorite wrestler of all time, still to this day. So, to me, this era was the best there was in the World Wrestling Federation. So I want to start with pretty much the beginning of the golden era. And I would say that's when Hulk Hogan wins the WWF championship for the first time. Obviously, that's even before my time because we're going to start here January of 84. So I was a whopping 2, being born late 81. I don't really remember a lot until you start getting up to WrestleMania 3, 1987 timeframe. So that's really the beginning. The Hogan Andre type stuff is where I really started. But just want to do a deep dive into things that happened, talk about it some, go over some of the events, maybe do some live watch-alongs, which we can't obviously watch it here on the channel, but I can get everybody to most of the pay-per-views. You start with WrestleMania 1, and then you have the Wrestling Classic, the big event, the next WrestleMania, and we'll get to that. Any big shows that might be out there that we can watch that are from this era, I'd like to do a watch along at some point where we can sit there and watch it, get some of the other guys and girls from here at Markout Moments who want to join us and talk. I can even do a thing. I can get 8 or 10 people on here and we can sit here and have a chat and watch along together, or even just follow along in the chat with stuff and kind of watch these events and go through it and all the crazy things that happen in this era. But not only just that, I want to talk about some of the wrestlers from this era as well. What's up, Moose? How's it going, buddy? Matthew Elvis Presley here. Moose Don's here. But there's so many big names that were in the World Wrestling Federation during this era. I mean, and they, some of them carried on till the New Generation, which is another show we'll do, along with the Attitude Era. After that, you get to the Ruthless Aggression and the PG, and then the new Renaissance era that we're in now. But I'm not too worried about focusing on those. I'd like to just do, get a good chunk of the golden era in, and then we'll move along there. But here in January of 84 is where we're starting. But you just think of some of the names that hit this era. Iron Sheik is your WWF champion. He just beat Bob Backlund on December 26, 1983, in which I'm sure anybody that's followed wrestling, especially in the New Generation in 1994, when Backlund won the title again, and they went with the whole Survivor Series against Bret Hart with the submission match where you got to throw in the towel. So those that don't know, the Iron Sheik beat Bob Backlund because Backlund's manager, Arnold Scollin, threw in the towel and pretty much submitted for Backlund. And this was the way Vince was getting the title off Backlund, getting it to a heel. And then he was going to build the World Wrestling Federation around Hulk Hogan. And I mean, it obviously worked. The WWF caught fire shortly thereafter. And I mean, I don't think anybody could ever imagine the billion-dollar industry that professional wrestling is now. And I mean, the leader is World Wrestling Entertainment, or WWE. I don't even know if they go by World Wrestling Entertainment anymore, but it's a mega industry. And you had the NWA at the time, which was a big stronghold. I mean, the WWF was a part of the NWA until they broke off sometime in the 82, 83 timeframe. They broke off from the world from the NWA. but they, have their own thing up there in the Northeast in the New York area. And I mean, when you think about that here in the United States, I mean, biggest city in the United States, New York City. So uh, WWF had a quite the stronghold there in the Northeast. So today's show gonna be pretty short, but over time we'll sit down and have chats about some of the our favorite superstars. Obviously, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, who I think a lot of the WWF was built around those two, followed by Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior, and you start talking about some of the tag teams, because one of my biggest complaints with wrestling now is, gosh, tag team wrestling's just lacking so much. The WWE just doesn't seem to really give a shit. And you got two sets of tag titles, and I mean, neither one of them mean anything. So, but you start talking about teams like Strike Force and the Brainbusters and Demolition and the Rockers and the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs, and you can go as the Fabulous Rougeau brothers. And I mean, there's so many. Powers of Pain end up coming in, and eventually you get the Legion of Doom come in. Everybody knows the Road Warriors. It's perhaps one of the greatest tag teams of all time. I'm partial to Demolition. It was just announced that they're going into the WWE Hall of Fame this year, and that to me is pretty exciting because I was always a huge Demolition mark. But there's lots of guys to talk about. Haku and Bobby the Brain Heenan and Gene Okerlund. So Gene Okerlund is now in the WWF here. He's just come over from the AWA. Bobby the Brain Heenan is on his way in as well. So just the superstars that are there, Ted DiBiase and Virgil and Rowdy Piper and Mr. Wonderful and then Mr. Perfect. And I mean, maybe we can even do something on the Red Rooster and all of those things. So there's a lot of guys that we can talk about and have fun discussions with that are from this era. And just a way to just kind of relive those past moments. And I mean, even if you like we do one of those shows, like we'll pull up something and like, hey, we can watch this match together if we all put it on in the background and whatever, and kind of just go that way and have fun with it. But with that said, so 1984 pivotal for the WWF. Vince McMahon's going his own way, and he's thinking expansion. Let's see who we got. Matthew Elvis Presley. Okay, we're in 84. Sheik is champ, and the WWF's preparing to take wrestling to where it's never been behind Hogan. The wrestlers are switching to more entertainment, morphing into our childhood love. Yes, that's right. So, and I'm gonna pull up something here, and we're gonna go over that. But so first off, the Iron Sheik defeats Bob Backlund December 26th, 1983, the day after Christmas. They're moving a new direction. This is the logo that we grew up on, the World Wrestling Federation. This was the best logo. Gosh, and the belts. We're gonna look at the belts here, but they were horrible, but they would morph into something much better over the years. We get better titles in the WWF. But I mean, so first and foremost, our champion right now is the Iron Sheik with his manager, Classy Freddie Blassie. So Sheik beats Backlund. Sheik is now the man, and it's obvious he's a transitional champion. This is something that we've done before with my cohorts from Drunken Pop, Timmy C and TJ. We've discussed, how the NWA was kind of a heel-led wrestling organization where they traveled the country and had, different territories within the NWA where everybody had their top babyface who was always chasing that heel. Pretty much in our lifetime was always Ric Flair was the traveling champion. And every once in a while the babyface would go over, and then 2 weeks later the belt would be right back with Ric Flair. But the WWF, it was different. They were a face run promotion. You go back to, have you read the Six Pack based on 6 of the wrestlers from the card when Sheik won the belt? I have not. I'll have to do a read in on that. So, but we had a discussion before about the heel champions in the World Wrestling Federation. And you think about this real quick. Let's talk about the golden era. We had Hulk Hogan beat the Iron Sheik. That pretty much kicks off the golden era. Eventually, you're going to have Macho Man with a heel run for a very short time. And then you'll have Sergeant Slaughter with a January to March, early April run. and that is it. So we're talking just a matter of a couple months over the span of 8 years is pretty much your golden era, 8.5 years. Everything else was led by a babyface champion. So, okay, Undertaker got 5 days, I guess we could say that. But then, up until Ric Flair. So Ric Flair won the title. And this is towards the end of your golden era there, because I consider when Brett beat Ric Flair the start of the new generation, but months, not even a year, a total of 8.5 years as heel champions. But we'll get to that later. But right now, your WWF champion is the Iron Sheik. Like I said, December 26, 1983, he beat Bob Backlund. Your Intercontinental champion, gosh, you guys remember this guy? Don Morocco. Good Lord, look at this. Don Morocco, he won the Intercontinental title from Pedro Morales on January 22nd, 1983. So he had been champion for a year at this point with the Intercontinental title. And he held it between 1981 and 1984 for, more than 560 days or something like that, something crazy. So, these were the days. This was far removed, or far before, I guess you could say, the Attitude Era, where the belt seemed to switch every few weeks. But the Magnificent Morocco, so The Rock, Don Morocco here, with the Captain Lou Albano as his manager. So, but this will be something that here on the next episode we'll be getting into, because that title's not going to be sitting on that shoulder much longer here. There's another superstar that maybe one day we can do a deep dive on, especially when it starts coming to way things change. And some of the great tag team and singles wrestlers with Tito Santana. But and then your WWF tag team champions. This is a blast from the past here. Soul Patrol, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson. They defeated the Wild Samoans on November 15th, 1983. So those are your main titles. I'm sure the Fabulous Moolah was in here with a women's title that was never seen or whatever. But Soul Patrol, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson. You got Don Morocco and you have the Iron Sheik. So, what an interesting lineup of people there. So, obviously, Tony Atlas, big time star in the 80s. Rocky Johnson, that is The Rock's father. Whoever would have thought that the most electrifying man in sports entertainment would be related to Rocky Johnson? Because honestly, let the cat out of the bag. I didn't know who Rocky Johnson was until The Rock became a thing. And then they started talking about his father. So, that he's been The Rock. That was Rocky Maivia days. But like I said, 84, still early for me, only being 2 years old. I'm not really jumping at the bit to watch the World Wrestling Federation at the age of 2. So I was just trying to make sure I didn't poop my pants and pee all over everything. So, but we'll talk about that first card. So the card that I am calling here that kicks off the golden era, New York City, Madison Square Garden, January 23rd, 1983. Excuse me. We got 26,292 in attendance. 26,292. So 22,000 plus were actually in Madison Square Garden for this event. And they had another 4,000 across the street at the Felt Forum. So, whatever it is, it's working for Vince McMahon here. Almost 27,000 people. I'm not a fan, Moose. Obviously, my favorite titles were you got to say it's obviously the Attitude Era, but the Big Eagle was my favorite WWF championship, and that Intercontinental Championship was also my favorite. But the tag belts that were won by the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs and Demolition, and those were my favorite tag titles. So the tag titles from the golden era that really made their name there up until, those were the same tag titles until 2001 time frame when WWE went to 2 different sets and they changed the belts. So yeah, I mean, not a fan of any of the titles here, but we'll get with that. So we got a question. Where's Ken Patera? He's here. He's going to be in the World Wrestling Federation here. Let's see if he's on this card. So the card right here from, no, not Ken Patera. Let's see. Televised on the MSG network, included Gorilla Monsoon and Pat Patterson on commentary. I don't know how Pat Patterson would have been on commentary. I can't imagine that was great for television, but Gorilla Monsoon is my favorite play-by-play guy of all time. I'm partial to Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan, followed by Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura. And then it would go to Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, which obviously has your teenage years, but there's just something, I don't know what it was. Gorilla Monsoon just felt like that grandfather figure talking to you about wrestling and how he would go the extra length to give you the technical names of different parts of the body. And man, it was good. And so our first match here on this card, January 23rd from Madison Square Garden, you got Tony Gurria pinned Jose Luis Rivera at 646 by reversing a crossbody into a cover. I know we did some deep dives back in the day watching some of these old school matches on Drunken Pop back when it was filter-free Popcast and we did more focus on wrestling. But now we're just on that show, just focusing on the pop culture and entertainment type things. And we've got so many other shows here on Markout Moments for wrestling. So, maybe one day if we get anybody wants to like, hey, let's watch something together, I'm all in. The Invaders fought Mr. Fuji and Tiger Chung Lee to a 20-minute time limit draw at 20 minutes and 23 seconds, according to History of WWF. The Masked Superstar pinned Chief Jay Strongbow at 726 with a clothesline. Isn't that Axe? Masked Superstar was also Axe from Demolition. So Demolition, obviously, like I said earlier, my favorite tag team of all time. I know we'll get into at some point. What did Andre become? The Masked something or another when he wore that yellow mask machine, the machine or something like that. The giant machine and the big machine and all those things. Sergeant Slaughter here defeated Ivan Putski via countout at 11:29 when Putski knocked Slaughter back into the ring as both men were brawling on the floor. After the bout, Putski continued to attack Slaughter, not realizing the match was over. So that's another one. Like Sergeant Slaughter, I remember him as a babyface guy in AWA. But even then, I didn't watch the AWA until later on when some of the old shows came on ESPN Classic. So I would watch some of that, but not really my jam. As even then, like I've said before, the NWA, I'm just now getting caught up on some of the 80s stuff from the NWA. I just didn't watch it. And actually growing up in North Carolina, that's kind of crazy. You would think I'd have been all about the NWA. And I was just such a big time WWF fan that it's crazy. That's everything revolved around Hulk Hogan and, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series up until King of the Ring became a thing. But so I knew of NWA. I would watch it sometimes when it was on. I think my real first memory is kind of like 89 with the NWA with Ric Flair and Terry Funk in an I Quit match. It's kind of where I kind of like started to learn a little bit about the NWA, but just wasn't really my thing. Another big time, Paul Orndorff with Roddy Piper pinned Salvatore Bellomo. Now, any of you guys not know who Salvatore Bellomo is? I don't know where you can do it now, but the network and on Peacock had the old ECW. So if you go back and watch any of the old Eastern Championship Wrestling before Extreme Championship Wrestling became Extreme, it was Eastern, and they had Salvatore Bellomo was actually one of their stars. Along Don Morocco and Superfly Jimmy Snuka were also big stars in the early ECW days. But so that's really the only Salvatore Bellomo that I have any kind of being able to watch any of his stuff was from that era. But Orndorff pins him with a power slam and a pile driver at 14:06. And this was Orndorff's Madison Square Garden debut, and Piper's back. This is Piper's Madison Square Garden return after a nearly 5-year absence. I know Piper was in the NWA. I know he had a deal up in Portland, and he would do a lot of stuff up there. So Piper's back, and obviously, as we all know, WrestleMania 1 is going to revolve around Piper and Hogan. And then eventually things will change, and Orndorff and Hogan are going to have a lot of feuds. So our Intercontinental Champion, Don Morocco, with Captain Lou Albano, fought Tito Santana to a double disqualification at 16:03 when both men continually ignored the referee's instructions. So this is obviously setting up another match that will happen the next month for the Intercontinental title. But it's crazy because, I remember Tito Santana as a tag team star with Strikeforce, and then kind of as just a regular old mid-carder when you get to El Matador and things of that nature. So after Strikeforce broke up, Tito Santana was kind of in no man's land. So him being at the top of the card like this here, that's great to see, because I think he was a very talented star. But it's kind of the same goes with Greg the Hammer Valentine. I remember him as a kind of middle of the road, WrestleMania 5 and 6 didn't really do much of anything. I think he lost to Savage in 5 in 4. I don't remember what 5 was. In 6, he was part of Rhythm and Blues with the Honky Tonk Man. And I mean, gosh, just think of the Honky Tonk Man. What a great deep dive we can do on him, because I mean, whether you like him or not, or you're Eric Bischoff and you hate him and you wish you could fire him every day, man, what a presence he had. And that run with the Intercontinental Championship was something else. So let's see, we go down further. The Haiti Kid and Tiger Jackson defeated Dana Carpenter and Pancho Boy in the best 2 out of 3 falls bout, 2-0. That sounds terrible. I don't know who, I guess, are those Haiti Kid? Are those the little wrestlers? And then let's see, Hulk Hogan subbing for Bob Backlund, pinned WWF World Champion, the Iron Sheik, with Freddie Blassie at 5:40 with a leg drop to win the title. So Hogan is in deep trouble. He is in the camel clutch. We all saw that's the move that put Bob Backlund out of wrestling for, I guess he came back a little bit and did a couple things here and there. But until late 92, I think he returned to the WWF. Had a good showing at the Royal Rumble in 93, but Iron Sheik's got Hogan in deep trouble here. Hogan's going to be the new face of the World Wrestling Federation. Hogan powers out of the old camel clutch, rams the Iron Sheik's back into the turnbuckle, and then boom, leg drop. We have a new WWF World Heavyweight Champion, Hulk Hogan. Gene Okerlund's going to be backstage with Andre the Giant. They're celebrating. Some of the other face stars come in, but I mean, my gosh, look how different Andre is, because when I think of Andre, I think of the black one titty cover singlet that he wore, and just Andre always to me was a bad guy until WrestleMania 6 when he turned face. And I mean, that was it anyway. He was pretty much done after that. But yeah, Backlund running for president 10 years after that. That whole thing was so silly, and I loved all of it. Even for as bad as the new generation, people talk about how bad the WWF was then. Man, I was, 1994 as a 12 and 13-year-old, man, I ate that shit up. So that was good stuff. So Hogan wins. Later, let's see, after that, you got Jimmy Snuka pinned Rene Goulet, who was a sub for Iron Mike Sharp at 354 with a crossbody off the top. And then I guess your main event of the evening was Andre the Giant with Soul Patrol, Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas, and they defeated Afa, Sika, and Samula. I guess that would go on to be Samu with Fatu and Samu of the Head Shrinkers. When Andre pinned Samu at 5:29 with a boot to the face and a sit-down splash. Could you imagine Andre sitting on you? But, man, I mean, just think of different eras, how great it would have been to see Andre versus some of the big guys. a young Yokozuna. The 93 timeframe Yokozuna was when he could actually move and wasn't just so big, but or an Andre Invader type thing. I mean, that would just be magnificent. But obviously, the size of Andre just took a toll on his body, so it didn't work out the way, you know, we would all have loved, because the world lost him so young. I mean, you think about it, Andre the Giant was, I mean, he's gone. He's younger than Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, AJ Styles, John Cena. All those guys are older than Andre was when he passed. And I mean, but Andre was just larger than life, and he had that. So he had that, whatever it was. He obviously, he's not going to go talk a million miles an hour on the microphone, but he was larger than life. And I mean, Vince had a way of what he envisioned his superstars to be, and they were big people. So Hulk Hogan, obviously not a small man, a lot smaller in his later years after all the back surgeries and all the things, because I saw him, I've met him multiple times, but the last time I saw him was a Top Guy weekend in Tampa for the Royal Rumble in 2024, and we went to Hogan's Beach Shop and his bar there, his karaoke bar thing they do, and he came and spoke. And I mean, I'm 6 foot tall, and he wasn't much taller than me, but obviously over the years took a toll on his body as well. But there's so many things that we can sit here and talk about with the golden era, and just this card right here. I mean, you look at this card, nothing seems overly crazy about it. You got an Intercontinental title match. You have the WWF Championship. You got a 6-man with Andre and the tag titles. You know, a returning Paul Orndorff. Salvatore Bellomo was, I mean, he was kind of a jobber to the stars in the WWE or WWF at the time. Slaughter and Putski, I guess, could be considered somewhat big, but nothing else really. I mean, just doesn't seem like an earth-shattering card, but I mean, almost 27,000 or 26,292 people. Things are looking good. So I have the Wrestling Observer that I'm going to, the newsletter from 84 that I'll be using to go through, and each week I'll go through and read up a bunch of stuff and put it together and put together my notes for the show, and then see what I can find that we can go back and forth and talk with. But until we really get to things that are more televised that you can actually see, I mean, I guess losing the network really hurts. And Peacock, you know, obviously they had a lot of this stuff, all the MSG shows and things like that were on there that, you know, are gone. So hopefully a lot of these get uploaded to the YouTube channel. That's terrible. Linda McMahon's still the best wrestler. Whew. Boy, she, her stunner might be the worst of all time. But a lot of guys to talk about, and just things to go through. And there's all the events. So I'm going to be doing a lot of research and seeing what I can find on the YouTube channels and things of that nature. And we can link up here and put in the chat. We can all watch together and discuss. And, you know, I know Moose, he's going to be a fun one to banter with back and forth. But so many different things to talk about. Starting here, WWF, January 1984. Hulk Hogan's your new champion. The belt's ugly. Can't wait till we get a new version of the belt, because that belt changes a lot. You get a couple different versions of the World Wrestling Federation Championship. And then obviously the Winged Eagle makes its appearance in the 88 time frame. So between 84 and 88, we get about 3 or 4 different world titles. And then they stick with Winged Eagle until, I mean, shit, we get that from 88 to 97. No, 88 to 98. So we get that for about 10 years, because after Austin won, he beat Michaels, won the Winged Eagle, and then out came the Big Eagle. And that was by far the greatest belt the World Wrestling Federation, WWE, ever had. Don't shoot the messenger. That's just my opinion. So we'll go with that. But it's going to explode. I don't know about you guys, but I know I sure did. I had a ton of these guys, the wrestling superstars. I had Hogan and Andre, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys now, one of my favorite wrestlers, obviously Hulk Hogan, my favorite wrestler of all time, but don't get mad at me. I didn't know that I didn't know world class was a thing. I didn't know Mid South was a thing, or UWF or whatever, but Junkyard Dog, awesome. Hillbilly Jim, pretty dang cool. So, I had all these. I had the Andre and Hogan and the Sheik and Junkyard Dog and Hillbilly Jim. I had all these toys. But man, what would I do to go back and be able to have all them brand new now? Because I played with them, so they were all just torn all up. I've told the story before. I was such a big Hulk Hogan fan. I'm in the grocery store, and anybody ever had honeycomb cereal? That stuff is straight trash. WWF had something, and those you get this box of honeycomb cereal, and you get a new Hulk Hogan poster. I wanted that poster so bad, and my mom's like, "You don't like honeycomb cereal?" Oh yeah, I love honeycomb cereal. Yep, if I buy that, you're still gonna eat it. I had to eat that whole big box of honeycomb cereal to put that Hulk Hogan poster on my wall. And that's like eating, just like eating cardboard with milk on it. It was absolutely terrible, but I ate it with a smile on my face because, man, I got me the coolest Hulk Hogan poster in the world. I know I found it at one point in time. I'll have to try and find it again because I know I made a post on Twitter about it. But so many good things. The golden era is obviously what really made wrestling expand and explode. And I don't know if any of that's possible without Hulk Hogan. I know you go back and listen to Bruce, on his podcast, Something to Wrestle. And, Vince was a big honeycomb. Yeah. Whew, God, it was gross. Vince was a big Dusty Rhodes guy. I don't know how this works. If Dusty Rhodes is in place of Hulk Hogan. Obviously Dusty had his place in the NWA, but I don't know if global expansion works, and it sure worked behind Hulk Hogan. And then, later on, WWF's really in trouble, and thank God for Steve Austin and The Rock, because that really helped out. But so many things to talk about, and just obviously WrestleMania 1 is going to be a big one. But you even go back and look at that WrestleMania 1 card, and like you go back and watch some of the old WCW pay-per-views from the early WCW days and the NWA days. There's still preliminary type matches on those cards. So you're top of the card. Obviously you have, Hogan and Mr. T versus Piper and Orton and all the things. But SD Jones and WrestleMania 1 was, what was it? King Kong Bundy and SD Jones in it in like 8 seconds. I want to say, you had Tito Santana and the Executioner. I think that was the first match in WrestleMania history. So there were still some preliminary type matches on those cards. Then, WrestleMania 2 happens, and they're doing it in 3 locations. And gosh, that was just insanity to even think about. But there's a lot to unpack. So we should have fun doing it. Everybody can talk. We can talk. People, let me know who your favorite guys were. You want to do a deep dive. You guys want to come on the show and join me and talk about them. I'm all for it. We'll put you on here and we can discuss and just kind of have that banter and go back and forth and how you would change things. Cause everybody would do something different. And, the fact that Hulk Hogan went 4 years with this title and was still as hot as ever when he lost it just goes to show you how times were so much different down in the 80s compared to what it is now. Cause Roman had a good run, but he was never around. So it was a little bit different, but Hogan being at all the pay-per-views and all the shows and the creativity of how they got the belt off Hogan just was, just genius. And to diehard wrestling fans, yeah, you'd know who Earl Hebner and Dave Hebner were, but for the vast majority of the kids watching the World Wrestling Federation, no clue. I had no clue. So, I was legit like, oh my gosh, the $1 million man paid for somebody's plastic surgery. To me, and you just go back and watch it. Gosh, it's genius stuff. So there's a lot there to unpack still. And then you look at the way some of those stories worked out, and then you see some of the crap we're fed on TV nowadays. And good Lord. But so we're gonna go ahead and cut this episode done. Cut it off here. Beginning of the, let's see what we would have had the Freebirds and Von Erich's time to time with Flair. See, I mean, that would have been awesome. And literally grew up in Durham, North Carolina, and no clue that the NWA was in Raleigh like every other week or something. Go back and listen to the book with Conrad Thompson and David Crockett. They were all over North Carolina. I had no idea, but is what it is. My parents wouldn't have taken me anyway because they hated wrestling. So it's probably one of the reasons why I still love it at the age of 44, because it was like a taboo thing. And oh my God, it's fake. Well, who gives a shit? So is Superman. But there you have it. So thanks for joining me for this quick dive into that first Madison Square Garden card in '84 with Hogan on it. He wins the title from the Iron Sheik. What an ugly title it was. But I mean, WWF is going to explode. Obviously, Vince McMahon's going to have to wheel and deal some for the to get WrestleMania off and running, and the way he leveraged cards against cards and did whatever and sold time slots and Black Saturday and Georgia. See, I don't remember any of that. That's just too early of my time, but it's all there. We're gonna talk about it and discuss it. And like I said, we get to a point, or there's a wrestler you guys want to talk about, you want to come and join the show with me, we can do that, because I mean, I think that'd be the best way to do this. So with that being said, Era's Golden Part 1, we're done. Next week, we're going to bring up the card. We're going to discuss Don Morocco losing the Intercontinental title to Tito Santana and how that's going to go about. And we're going to look at the future of that, because then I know Tito's going to run into some trouble shortly after that, because that mid card, or that, I mean, you can't even say the Intercontinental title was mid card at that time, because it was big things up until, it seemed to me, up until the late 90s, the Intercontinental title still meant something. So Darren Staley's here. You're late, Darren. You'll have to go back and watch it and let me know what you think. And then we'll get you on and you can talk about your favorite WWF Golden Era stars with me. So I did not know that Don Morocco invented the tombstone. That's a new one. So, but yeah, Moose is right. Black Saturday is definitely worth covering as part of the Golden Eras. It could have changed wrestling even earlier. And I think that's something that we'll have to maybe, I'm pretty sure that one's on YouTube. We can put that together and we can all sit here and discuss Black Saturday and watch that. But with that being said, I got to go take my daughter to volleyball. I thank you guys for joining us for the new one. And as soon as we figure out a way to really get some of the Golden Era moments, obviously we're going to start in '84 and work our way up to '92. So we're going to have to do it in time. Whatever I can find, anytime anything big happens, we'll discuss it here. So we'll kind of do it. I know in February, Tito Santana is going to win the Intercontinental title. And I think in April, Soul Patrol is going to lose the WWF tag title. So obviously that heavyweight title is not going anywhere for quite a while. But man, oh man, was Hulk Hogan a worthy champion. So thank you guys for joining us. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to add. We'll figure out how to do it, how to do watch-alongs behind the scenes and discuss, because, I mean, that's going to be the best way to do it. So obviously it would be great if I could put it right here on the screen and we could all watch and shoot the shit, but copyright. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching. See you next time right here on Markout Moments.